Good day. My name is Brian Wilton. I'm glad you could join me today. I had a unique opportunity, a little interaction today with a fellow author who is of some renown. Matter of fact, everybody knows him. And I was fortunate enough to read the preface to his new book, and I assure you that his release will be a book that does it again. He made a comment about the divinity of man. You watered down or something along that line, and I brought up Julian the Apostate's comment. What is a God but a being that knows himself so much more intimately than we do? And in that knowing, there is limitless capability. I think he said it in Miss Fogganon. Perhaps not, who knows. He has several writings. If you haven't read Julian the Apostate, I highly encourage you to do so. Any of his writings. Julian the Apostate was the Roman emperor that attempted to bring pagan faith back into the Roman Empire after Constantine fucked it up. And then, of course, Emperor Theodosius, subsequent to Julian the Apostate, made it the official religion, made Christianity the official religion, and that was the death knell for much of the pagan ideologies that made Rome and Greece and Persia such wonderful, vibrant cultures that they were in the past. What we're left with is what we're dealing with today, where everyone has the unique idea that life should be easy, that someone else will do it for you. Let God take the wheel. Nothing could be further from the truth. In Joseph Campbell's book, Mythic Journeys, he discusses hunter-gatherer religions as well as the religions that originated in the farming communities. And those unilaterally appeared in the equatorial regions around the world, the earliest forms of those myths. And he told one about a tribe of Indonesian headhunters. And I relayed to you the other day about the bear and the hunter-gatherer. The bear was the embodiment of a god who had come to visit the world, and the people sacrificed the bear not in an effort to send a life force back to appease the gods, but to liberate that god so that he would think favorably upon them. It's an interesting perception of the world, one that's completely alien to us. In the Indonesian headhunter cannibal communities, there's a coming-of-age ceremony for young men where several young boys will be ceremony and feasting, and there'll be a massive orgy, which they will not be allowed to participate in. And at the end of the celebration, they will have built a structure, several very heavy logs propped up by sticks. And they'll take a pretty young lady from the village, and she will go sit underneath that set of logs. And each young man who is coming of age will crawl under there and embrace her, and then move on. And when the final young man gets there to embrace her, 4 men of the village come out, and they yank the supports out from underneath the logs, and the logs crush the young couple as a sacrifice. It's kind of terrifying, its originality, but not being raised in that culture and looking in, you can see why, when a Christian missionary said, "Hey, our God sacrificed himself for you, you don't have to do that anymore," why it would be an easy sell. But we're missing a very crucial point. In that moment of sacrifice, that young couple represented, they believed that they were those divine beings. How do those people rectify the pain of loss? While they celebrate the freeing of their divine beings. I look around the culture of much of today. I see comments and hear things. And Jack made an interesting comment. So many of our people would rather rely upon the great deeds of their ancestors instead of becoming strong men themselves. Pisses me off that he wrote it first, but he did. That's good. And he's not wrong. I see one of the cruel weaknesses of this powerful manifestation of men attempting to become men again, a decided avoidance of pain, not of physical duress, mind you, not of the mental struggle to achieve and do and learn, but the kind of cowardice that emerges from the heart. The kind of cowardice that will come up with all kinds of fancy things in an effort to avoid that pain of loss. See, life is tough, and no two questions about it. It's a good world we live in, and there are good times to be had by all. And there are moments of joy sublime and passion beyond imagining. But someone you love will die. And we have a choice. Someone you love will decide to leave you. Someone you love will take an action that hurts you. Do we bear up under the load? Do we measure up to the standard to deal with that kind of emotional pain? Or do we seek refuge and avoidance? Someone take this from me because I don't know what to do with it. Which is most often the case. Because we've been raised in a culture in which we've been assured that you don't really have to hurt anymore. And yet we also live in a society in the United States where between 17 and 30 million children are being raised without fathers in the home to give them and remind them and encourage them not to be afraid of the monsters, to go ahead and dream, to play, to be courageous, to cry a little bit. We want to grow up to be men, and yet we find ourselves with mental fortitude and extreme physical toughness. And yet when it comes to the affairs of the heart, we falter in the face of the ability to love courageously, afraid that it might hurt. I'm going to tell you, in no uncertain terms, fuck yes, it's going to hurt. But there's no reason to not try. There's no reason not to embrace the most profound experience a person might ever get to enjoy, is the ability to love, even if for a moment, someone close to you. Perhaps I'm a hopeless romantic, but I can't help but think of Sigurd finding Brunhild up on the hill. He is wearing the helm of fear, helm of awe. That great mask that keeps everyone else at bay, in fear of, in awe of, away from him. Guard, as his shields are held high, much like ours are. We walk around with our chests stuck out and our heads held high, as if we might be immune to the emotional pain that others would seek to inflict upon us. As Sigurd crosses through the flames, his first image of the individual laying there is not of a woman, but of an opponent. If you read the words again, it shows. When he takes off that helm, when he lets down his shield, when he takes off that protection against the emotional pain the world will throw at you without any given notice, he recognizes the woman in the burning, and he cuts from her the burning and frees her and wakes her up. Who cut from me the burning? Who freed me from my slumber? The important thing to remember there is who put her in that slumber. Her father. Her father pricked her with a sleep thorn for not living up to the standard he thought she should live up to. How many children today are surrounded by a wall of flame? How many grown women and men are surrounded by, how many men are wearing a helm of fear? How many women are surrounded by a wall of fire? How many women are asleep in their own hearts, waiting for someone to cut free the burning? How many men have the courage to walk through that fire? My goodness, if there's nothing more this faith might ever provide to us, and I don't really care what faith you decide to follow, if it cannot embolden within you the courage to indulge and risk that moment of love because you're afraid it might hurt. I see much of these comments I'll have a couple of women on the side. That way I won't look like a fool if I get hurt. Who gives a fuck if you look like a fool? Grow up. Be a man about it. Yep, I tried and I failed. How can I do better? What do I need to look at here? What kind of woman am I picking? Well, what am I thinking when I decide to engage with this person? Am I worth crossing over that fire? Have I built myself into an individual capable of handling the flames that surround a woman's heart? And not being crippled by it if I fail? That kind of courage is a rare thing. That kind of courage is the most challenging thing facing masculinity today. And I see men building within themselves excuses if it fails already, or keeping women on the side. Let me tell you something. If you have a friend, you say, well, that's my best friend, and they're the opposite sex. Every bit of effort you're putting into maintaining that relationship is taking away from the relationship you're trying to cultivate with a partner. You must have clear boundaries. Well, they may not like me very much if I say that's not acceptable. They may not. And? Are you reduced? Have you been minimized? Are you somehow fatter, skinnier? Did your hair go gray? How are you changed by the fact that someone over here no longer cares for you? How does that reduce you? Simple fact of the matter is it does not. And yet we have millions upon millions of men and women struggling on a daily basis. Why can't I find love? Why can't you give some? Why can't you start by giving some to yourself? Why can't you start by standing up and realizing who you are? Yes, you might fail. Yes, it will hurt. That's life. That's the process of growth. That's what makes us so many wonderful things as we grow older. For in our wisdom, we shall find a refuge from grief. We should have known better. Maybe I could have done a little bit better. Maybe I could have tried harder. Maybe I could have lived up to the expectations I had of even myself. That's where we become men. There's no grand action. There is no dragon outside to slay. The point when a boy becomes a man is when he makes the decision to step away from the safety net afforded to him by mother and father. Mom and dad will take care of me. They won't let me fall. When you make the decision to step away from that safety net and go your own way, and then you're finding a path of masculinity. And it doesn't matter what age it happens at. Most of the time it doesn't happen as a young man, because there are fewer and fewer men in the home willing to encourage a young man. Go try. Give it your best. If you fail, I'm still your dad. I'm still your father. And I still love you. But you gotta at least try. How many young men, how many grown men would have loved to have heard those words? There are today thousands and thousands and thousands of men who are willing to share that sentiment with another man, to encourage him to try, to get up one more time. Don't be distracted by the bullshit. Get up and try. Got your heart broke? Yeah, that really sucks. It hurts like few things ever fucking do for a man and a woman. Do not live a life afraid of it crippling you, because it will cripple you. That fear will cripple you every bit as effectively as a strike to the knee. Be bold. Be courageous. Be brave enough to give it a shot without hesitation. Get in front of them. Here I am. And if they say no, they say no. They change their minds. There's no fancy way to do it. You can pick up women all day long. Because I got to tell you guys, all these guys that think they're pickup artists, these girls are thinking the same thing. I need to get laid tonight. Nobody wants to talk about that, though. Because those girls are going to get together with their girlfriends and they're going to giggle about this shit. Well, these guys are going to go over and talk about how great they are. That's the reality of it, guys. At some point, we got to grow up and figure out how to be men and stop avoiding the fear of emotional pain, the emotional cowardice that runs rampant through the crowds of masculinity as they attempt to hustle this woman or hustle that woman to prove how much of a man they are. What a fucking farce. Why you could not find a lower denominator for me to consider your masculinity than how many women you think you can hustle. Number one, because you can't beat me. But that's beside the point. I win. Think about life, guys. I got to tell you, in any kind of effort to be successful, you're going to have to deal with being uncomfortable with shit. It's going to be scary. It's going to be risky. I don't care what kind of success you want to follow. When I started writing books, I broke every rule in the book. I was lampooned, made fun of. There were whole pages of Facebook people that called me stupid, said I was an idiot, didn't know what I was talking about, wrote books about Brian Wilton doesn't understand heatheny, and I could have give a shit less because I was willing to take a risk. I was willing to try because I believed in myself first. One of the greatest things we might ever do is have that courage. And I will continue to harp on it. And I will continue to talk about it. It's just like so many other things in life. We have to figure out how to bear up under the strain of what's going on around us. And if you come across somebody that has what it takes to stand by your side, don't second guess that shit. Don't sit there and be making plans about what's going to happen. Don't sit there and think, well, if she does this and I'm going to do that, and she's going to do what she's told, and I'm going to be in charge of this, and I'm going to take efforts to make sure I don't get hurt, and I'm going to guard my, that's how that's going to be. Why would you set yourself up for failure? Why would you sabotage what's there? For once in your life, if you're with somebody, set that aside. Because there's no clarity in it. How can you make a clear decision? How can you make an educated decision about what is and what is not acceptable in your life if you're always preparing for disaster? Sometimes it's going to hurt. And there ain't a shitting thing you're going to be able to do to stop that. You sit down, and if it hurts bad enough, you have a little cry. And I have seen men cry over it. And then you get up and you start all over again. When I went through Special Forces Assessment Selection the first time in June of 1992, I remember a guy, we were doing a daytime lat nav, and he just collapsed. He had literally given everything he had, and he collapsed. And the medics came up, they checked his core temperature, they put him in the back of the truck, and I remember watching him cry as they drove him out of there. He could go no further. He was physically done. Imagine what it might look like if you had what it took in your life to love that strongly, to care about someone so greatly. When your child is born, it comes there. It's instinctive. It shows up to any kind of man that has common sense. Anyone that's not drunk or strung out on drugs, they recognize the gift that they've been given. And at some level, there's this instinctive understanding, I'm all she's got. I'm all he's got. And we begin to try. What would happen if we gave the same kind of effort that young man did at SFAS that one very hot fucking June at Camp McCall to loving someone next to us? He didn't have any hesitation. He didn't have any reservation. And at SFAS, guys, there's no one standing there hollering at you like at Buds or Ranger School. There's no drill sergeant standing there saying, come on, go, get up and go, move, move, move. There's none of that shit. They're simply standing there with a clipboard making a check. Is he giving 110%? It's all in your mind. Am I giving 110%? Am I meeting the standard? Here's the deal about that. You don't know what the standard is. You have to give your best all the time. And I had to go through it twice. And still was never selected. But it wasn't because I didn't try. If we could apply that kind of courage to the spirituality in our faith, if we could apply that kind of dedication to the person we profess to love, how might the world change? How might your world change? We stop second guessing the people next to us because we think somebody else is. There's a whole world of new horizons, even on that realm, that we cannot begin to fathom because we're afraid of emotional pain. I see a lot of it in the red pill community. I see the things that he said. Some of them are very smart. Some are very good. But it's just like the allegory of the cave. There was a time when people all lived in a cave. And they faced away from the fire. And they watched the shadows on the wall. Generation upon generation of husband and wife and children and grandparents watched the shadows on the wall as if they were reality. And over time it became their reality. Until one day a man decided to leave the cave. And he walked outside and he saw grand new vistas, horizons that boggled the mind, trees and living things in the sun. And he saw the sun. And he went back inside and he began to tell everyone about it. And there was much wailing and gnashing of teeth, and they killed him. And that's kind of where a lot of the world is today. We have men out here screaming at the top of their lungs, look here, there's a promise, there's a way, there's an ability to do it, come try. And there's a whole cave full of people saying, no, I want to watch the shadows on the wall. Fuck you. Don't be the people in the cave. Be brave enough to witness a new horizon. Start with your heart. Everybody understands how to get a hold of your mind and your thought process. Everybody understands how to get your body and make it strong. Let's start and follow up with our ability to love and see what kind of men we can really become. Because I promise you, if you create an environment where a woman is free to express the beauty of who she is, something you have no control over and never will, you're liable to witness grand new vistas and horizons like you have never imagined. And if it all comes crumbling down, if it all burns away in the sun, now you know the standard to shoot for. So go out there, grab life by the nose, and whip its ass.